He's Mike Kadlick.
Mike Kadlick is kind enough to join us.
All right, we're going to talk to Mike Kadlick.
Today's guest is Mike Kadlick.
It's Mike Kadlick. Hello, Kadlick.
Mike Kadlick?
Mike Kadlick is called the radio.
Oh, wow. We don't need any drinks, any drugs to talk with Mike Kadlick.
It's convenient that my name's Mike and your name's Mike, and it works out for marketing purposes.
Mike Kadlick, host of the Behind the Mic podcast.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another episode of the Behind the Mic podcast, where we peel back the curtain into the sports media industry, find out all about those in it, who they are, and what makes them tick. I'm joined by James White for episode 15, a very special guest here, somebody who is now in the media, was obviously a Patriots legend, Super Bowl 51 hero, now a part of the media himself. So, James, before we get into it, thank you so much for joining me. How are we doing today?
No problem. Appreciate you having me on, Mike. This should be fun. It'll be a little different.
Definitely going to be a little different. I like to start this episode, or this podcast rather, with a segment called Resume Time, where the floor is basically yours to kind of go through everything you've done. Normally it's in the media career. This one's a little different, obviously, because you played football for so long. But I'm curious because I also noticed too that you have a nice LinkedIn presence. You don't see a lot of football players, updating their LinkedIn page all the time. But you were an intern at Merrill Lynch when you were in college and things like that. So from high school, basically now to where you are now in the media game, could you just take us through everything you've sort of done and how you got to where you're at today?
I went to St. Thomas Aquinas High School, played football, baseball there. Ended up signing to the University of Wisconsin to play football. Went there freshman year, won Big Ten Freshman of the Year there. Had a couple subpar years. Then senior year, me and Melvin Gordon, at the time we rushed for like the most combination yards in like college football history or something like that.
Just ridiculous running back groups at UW back then.
Yeah, we had a lot of talent in that room. So we pushed each other to become better football players, better people. One of the best decisions I ever made. Not even just for on the field, off the field, academics, everything. It was the perfect spot for me. In 2014, into the 2014 NFL draft. Had no idea when I would get drafted, if I would get drafted. I felt like I was good enough to play in the league, just not sure, how that would come about. My only pre-draft visit was to the New England Patriots. Had a feeling potentially I could go there or potentially go to the Baltimore Ravens. Ended up in New England, didn't do anything my rookie year. Honestly thought I was going to get cut after that. In my second year, we signed like seven or eight bags of free agency and all that stuff. So I thought I was going to get the short end of the stick and end up getting cut out of pretty good OTAs, pretty good preseason. Still didn't result in me playing right away. I didn't play until one of my good friends, Deion Lewis, ended up getting hurt. And then once I stepped onto the field, I never wanted to look back. I didn't want to have that feeling once again of sitting there watching it. It's tough as a competitor when you're used to, playing from little league, high school, college, and used to being on the field all the time. Then you get to the NFL, you're with the best of the best, and you're sitting there watching. It's definitely not a very good feeling. It's definitely not, easy to stay, kind of laser focused and, go out there and perform at a high level. So I really had to lock in that second year to, kind of be where I wanted to be. End up playing, 8 seasons, with one team, which is kind of unique now. The guys are, all over the place, 2-3 teams. Very fortunate enough to play for a historic franchise, won a few Super Bowls, learn from some of the best, and stay within the organization. Definitely forever grateful for Mr. Kraft. Bill Belichick did a lot for me and my family. There's great people still, have a good relationship with all those people there, coaches, teammates. So ended up getting hurt my seventh year, or my 8th year, ended up getting hurt. It
was the hip, right?
Yeah, ended up fracturing my hip. Didn't know necessarily what exactly happened until like later on when I got to the hospital and they're kind of explaining to me some similar injuries that happened and whatnot. So then I came to like the realization it was a pretty serious thing. It's not really a football injury. It's kind of like a car accident injury. It was a tough recovery. Like I said, didn't know whether I was going to keep playing football after that because I was a free agent as well at the time. So I'm like, nobody's really signing a broken hip running back.
Yeah, right.
30-year-old running back. But then when free agency opened up, Bill Belichick called me, asked me if I was going to continue playing football. And by that time, I came to the realization I was going to at least, give it a try, see what would happen, see if I could, actually fill out myself and go out perform. I didn't want to walk away without, giving it a try. So signed back there, did rehab and everything. Then never actually made it to the field, just doing rehab with the Patriots. It's like it was tough though. Like at the end of weeks, it was hard for me to walk. Like I'm limping around. And this before I'm even getting on the field, making contact with anybody, actually getting tackled.
Right.
So it just came to the realization like I don't want to force myself. They're gonna be patient with me. I didn't have to play that season. It could have been the following season, but I was just like I can't. That's not like.
How old were you at the time?
31 at the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I could move around like it. I could have forced myself to go out there and play, and
Right.
I played okay, but I wouldn't have felt like myself. And I don't know whether I would have lasted an entire year. And I never wanted to be that guy. You see somebody out there like, man, get that guy off the field. Like,
Yeah,
right. He shouldn't be out there. So that was a big reason for me retiring.
That's
and then,
fun.
Yeah, if you want me to get into the media type.
Yeah, go for it. I'm curious because like it's funny too because I wanted to ask you about that. Like 2022, that was my first year covering the team, and so I remember there was like I was at OTAs and I would see you, but you weren't really there, and everyone's kind of like, is he gonna play? Is he gonna kind of not? And then your retirement ceremony down in Foxborough that fall was the first time, and we talked about this the other day, but it was the first time I ever mustered up the courage to ask a former or a player a question. Stacy was handing around the microphone, and that was that. So that was pretty cool. But like when I want to get into your media stuff now, but when you retired in 2022, obviously, tough decision, everything, going through an injury and whatnot, but was media ever like in your sights? Like, during your career, did you think this would ever be a thing? Did you ever try it, or has it kind of come on later? Like what has the transition been like? And obviously now, what are you doing now?
Yeah, I always had an interest in being in the media, being a sports broadcaster.
Okay.
Studied communications at Wisconsin. And I wanted to have an opportunity to do it once I, was done playing. Obviously, It wasn't. I thought my career would be a little bit longer. Like it would have went as planned for me. Probably played like 2 more years or so, but kind of stopped abruptly. And I didn't necessarily have a plan because I didn't like go to the broadcasting boot camps, which I should have like early on in my career. So probably younger guys that. Not really looking post football. Definitely, a lot of guys are doing it now. Just start doing things that you may be interested in doing while you're playing. I definitely should have did a lot more of that. But yeah, always wanted to get into sports broadcasting. When I retired, probably like a week or so once I was done, my agent now like reached out to me. Got my phone number from somebody, my agent or something. And asked me if I was interested in doing sports broadcasting and stuff. I was like, yeah, that's really the way I wanted to go. And it was pretty slow to start, honestly. I started working at SiriusXM like that first year when I was done every Wednesday morning, still doing that with Solomon Wilcots, the opening drive, which I enjoyed doing, breaking down, games, situations, talking off-season moves, head coaching changes, like all that stuff, really getting a little, a different picture, of the game of football, not just on the field, off the field. Just still learning a ton. And then last year, worked my first time like doing TV with Big Ten Network, working with a lot of the guys that covered me when I was at Wisconsin. So that was really cool to kind of learn the ropes. From all those guys, get comfortable, being behind the camera on TV or in front of the camera on TV, breaking down the game. Really enjoyed it. It's different. It's a learning curve, and I just had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, as of right now, that's been pretty much it. It's a fairly slow business.
Right.
Guys, hold on to their jobs a very long time because they're really good at what they do, and definitely the networks like to keep a lot of that familiarity and the relationships are there. So it's just been really being patient to see what really comes about from it. Started my own podcast, like we talked about before, the Money Down podcast. Yeah. 2 of my former college teammates, Jordan Shelton, Warren Herring, really enjoying doing that. Talking not just sports, kind of life, trying to motivate people. We call it the Money Down because it applies to football, applies to life. We have money downs, third down,
third down.
Special on the football field. And you got money down situations in life where you really have to go all in on yourself and figure it out to get where you want to be. And we talk about it like some people have already been through that situation. Some people are in it right now. For me, like post football, I feel like I'm kind of in my money down moment, like just trying to go all in on whether it's the media space, whether whatever I want to be. I have to kind of figure that out. going into year 3 of being retired.
Yeah.
My wife wants me to start getting out the house more, so so that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. No, it's cool. It's a good pod. Like you said, I like how it's, it's a mix of sports and life, right? It's not just all football. And it's kind of, frankly, that's kind of why I started this too, because, I was like Patriots, football, sports all day long. And, I'm super interested in the media side and kind of want to keep doing it myself. So to have a little bit of a different angle to kind of talk about sports, but not in like a sports way. So it's a good pod, and if you haven't, go check out the Money Down podcast, and we'll get to it a little bit more later down the line here. But I do have a couple questions since this is a media podcast about Big Bill Belichick and his attitude towards us in the media, because look, it's no secret that there's this idea that Bill just hates the media and don't say anything, don't talk, but this and that. Like, I'm just curious, as a player, what that was like and what that looked like from his point of view and then from your point of view. Like, was it really as much of a focus as everybody makes it out to be, where don't talk, don't say this? What was taught to you guys? Like, did you guys was there like, PR training with those? Like, I'm so curious how it worked, because I know that there was this idea that, the media is poison and it only, makes bad things happen. But I'm curious what it looked like from a player's point of view.
From a player's point of view, I don't think we necessarily had an issue with it, because, the way he spoke to the media, he wanted us to speak to the media. It's not really, not saying anything. It was just like not going into too much detail if you don't have to, because, whether it's your opponents, whether it's whatever, somebody else can, grab those details and use it to help them prepare a little bit. Whether you're talking about an injury, whether you're talking about schemes or, strengths and weaknesses. It kind of these teams, they look into all that stuff. So I think that's, from his vantage point, tries to be as minimal as possible. Like, it definitely comes off as being an a-hole to probably the media, because you guys need details to write stories and really do your work. So I could definitely see it from that point of view being very tough when he's not being too descriptive. But I feel like the older I got, my years there, I feel like he started to open up a little bit more. I mean, he still had his moments where he tried to make people feel like they're not asking an intelligent question, which is a very hard thing to do. Most people think it's so easy, but it's definitely difficult to ask good questions, especially when you're talking to legend coaches like Bill or whatever. You're talking to Sean McVay, some of these brainiac coaches. It's hard to ask good questions.
So I guess he wouldn't, like, would he say to you guys, like, don't say this, don't say that? Like, I feel like everything was it. I'm so curious if it was as calculated as it seemed. Like, the last 3 years, like, every single time, and it was obviously more losses than not, but every single time David Andrews is first to the podium. It's like, does Bill send that guy out there? Does he make sure that David's the first guy to talk? Like, if you say something, is there like a slap on the wrist, or is it just?
Oh, there's no slap on the wrist. You're getting called out.
Okay, all right.
By the team for sure. There's no really PR training. He just kind of just says, like, we don't need to be talking about this and that. Talk about yourself. Don't speak on any of your teammates.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get asked a question, you feel uncomfortable, you don't feel like you're gonna say the wrong thing, just tell them to ask me, Bill Belichick, and I'll answer it for him. So there's really no full breakdown. He'll kind of this is a kind of a funny way how he does it. Like, during the off season, he'll read like media clips from like people from other teams or whatever during their off season or during the season from last year. Like, he'll be like, see like one player be like we'll be back next year, or I'm gonna catch for 1,000 yards and do this and that, and then he'll like go back to last year. Like, this guy only had 200 yards receiving. He played 6 games, like stuff like that. So he kind of said, like, don't put too much out there, and then you don't end up backing it up, and then people are going to bring that back up. You said this, but you didn't do this, and everybody's kind of looking at you sideways. It's kind of managing expectations for everybody.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed too. When I've heard like others say it before. He always says, just speak for yourself, and don't talk about anybody else. Don't if you get asked about, I mean, with like an example, like the Antonio Brown situation when he came to you guys that year. It's like everybody's asked about him and nobody answers about him. It's like, you're gonna have to ask AB that. You're gonna have to ask Bill Belichick that, and it's like, you just don't put yourself in a shitty situation and don't answer the question, and it makes it that much easier.
It's good though, because then you don't feel obligated to answer a question where, like, if you have a coach that doesn't tell you that, then hey, you may slip up and say something that you're
right.
not
You're just gonna start yapping and say something dumb, right?
And you're all over the social media, and everybody on the team's getting asked this question about how you answered it, and it may not even be the truth.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. It's not, now talking through it on here, it's like, it's really not that complicated. It doesn't have to be as big of a deal as people make it. It's like, we're a football team. We want to win football games. Don't say shit to those guys that's going to make us look bad. Just worry about yourself and just move on and carry on. So anyway, I'm curious too about, like, so you were there for 8 years and you became, you started off, you mentioned it, a draft pick who, wasn't involved early, but then you turned into like obviously a trustworthy running back in the offense. We know about Super Bowl 51 and, all that stuff. And so throughout your career, did you feel like you could kind of say a little bit more and kind of maybe not open up a little bit more, but like have more of a relationship with the media? And in general, I'm curious about your relationship with the media overall, because I was looking back and you won the Ron Hobson Good Guy Award in 2018, which is, I don't know how much you guys care about that, but that's like the one thing that we all get to vote on in the media room is, it's basically, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's an award given to one Patriots player every year who fulfills their media obligations to the fullest and really kind of goes all out to help us out. And so we appreciate it. So, did you like talking? Did you dislike talking to the media? Was it hard after a game if, maybe you or the team overall had kind of a crappy game? Like, what was your relationship like?
I feel like early on, as a rookie, Bill's a little bit tougher, like on the young guys, as far as, what they say in the media, because, you're young, you don't really know too much. So just try and be as minimal as possible and literally not say too much. So not that I was uncomfortable, but hey, I wasn't playing, so there's really no reason for anybody to be asking me any questions anyway. But like my rookie year, it was crazy. I think that was like the whole, was that the Deflate Gate stuff, like going
oh
there,
yeah,
my rookie and everything. Like people asking me questions, I'm like, what are you asking me for? Like I wasn't even on the field. Like, has nothing to do with me, that type of thing. But yeah, as you get older and you start playing more, you definitely feel a little bit more comfortable. I feel like he kind of lets like the leash off a lot. Like, some of the older guys that he kind of trusts, they're not going to go out there and, say something outrageous about themselves or their teammates. So you definitely get an understanding that he's not really trying to make you say nothing. He's just trying to steer you in the right direction of what to say. And for me, I never really felt, uncomfortable, answering questions. I understand like you guys have a job to do. Right. And I would stick around, like even like if I'm about to like walk out of the locker room and somebody asks me to, like, can I just ask you like one or two questions before you walk out? Like I'll stay there and answer the questions. It can be a little annoying at times, but like I said, I have an understanding that you guys have a tough job to do. You got to ask the coach questions. You're trying to get to a few different guys in the locker room. You got some guys hiding and don't really want to answer questions. So it's not very easy, but I just try and be relatable and be open to everybody. I think that's, kind of how I built my relationship with the media.
Yeah, I always wonder about that too, because again, being in the locker room, you guys have to practice and stuff. It's like it almost. I wonder if it ever feels like you guys just think that all these guys are just around and trying to get like a gotcha moment out of us, like just trying to get us to say something, something that we can write about that's maybe not going to go over well or be something clickbaity. So, like, was it ever? I kind of already said awkward, but did it ever feel like that way? Did it ever feel like only the questions were only like trying to get a headline and not just like something that's actually football related?
No, I think you build relationships with obviously certain people. You see certain people more than others, and you kind of build somewhat of a trust factor. I think that's really the biggest thing as far as players in the media. You build a trust factor, especially with the New England Patriots media. People like yourself, you see, every day, every few days or so. I think that's what it's all about, building the trust with people. I mean, there's going to be, you obviously know there's certain people going to ask a little bit more in detail, a little bit more, aggressive questions. But it's just all about, you can control that with how you answer. Like I said, if you feel like it's a little too much, then simplify your answer, or you be like, oh, I don't feel like answering that right now, or I'm just focused on this, or I'm just focused on that. The person answering the question, like Bill Belichick's in full control.
Yeah. And so now seeing it from this side now, being in the media space, do you see it differently? Like, do you see having to, create content all the time, every day. Like you kind of need stuff from people. You need to like see it. Like what's it like now post career in your life now, seeing like what the dynamic is with players?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I said, it's building the trust, being able to ask the right questions, not get repetitive, especially when it's out of the season, when it's the off season. That's the hardest time. You kind of have to not like make up a story, but you have to create, interesting things to talk about. And I said sometimes that's some things that players may not necessarily hear, whether it's roster grades or evaluating who should be traded, who should be cut, and this and
15 different damn mock drafts.
Mock drafts and all that, trying to evaluate everybody, which is hard. It's hard to evaluate 53 or whatever, 90 players on one team and all that. Guys, moving all around the different, teams. It's very difficult to keep up with the players and to really be able to study each and every one of them. Because if you say something that, especially these days, if you say something that, a player may not like, or he sees it on social media, then he may say something to you on social media or in person. You never really know, but you're just trying to, use your evaluation to obviously spread based on your knowledge, what you believe is right. And like I said, everybody's going to have a difference of opinion. Not got a million, billion, trillion people in this world. Not everybody's going to have the same opinion on one person. So.
I am curious too. So you've done TV with the Big Ted Network. You've obviously done podcasting with yourself and on the Money Down podcast. You've done color commentary, radio games and stuff. Yeah. So taking all of that into consideration, but just kind of everything now you're trying to do in this second part of your career, what's your favorite part of working in this industry now?
Ooh. I really enjoy the color commentating. That's where I feel like I'm the best at really just describing what I see to, the people watching the game, really breaking it down, giving them, what I see, the details that I see, what I think, the offense or the defense is trying to do, what I think they should do, shouldn't do, or just describing, what I see out there. That's a really, fun part about it. So every football player, especially the guys that consider themselves smart football players, I feel like they can excel at that because, not everybody who's watching necessarily knows it from a football standpoint, just kind of a touchdown, first down. They didn't gain any yards here, but for players that know the game, you can kind of explain why that might have happened.
Yeah, right. And so what stinks? What's the least favorite part? And I do this in every show, but I kind of preface it with like, we're not digging ditches here. We're sitting here talking about football. You played the game. I've been a fan of the game forever. Like it's something that's, it's a great job. But what's something that people might think or might not think is kind of a pain in the ass?
I mean, asking players and coaches questions. It's hard. Like just trying to come up with multiple questions to ask somebody either right after a game or whatever before a game or during the week. It's not very easy, especially if there's multiple people asking questions.
Yeah, right.
That's very tough. And I think evaluating players and coaches that that's very difficult because obviously when things aren't going well, you want to be open and honest about it, but you don't want to be overcritical because what if they were in your shoes, and you're playing and they say something pretty outlandish. You got to try and find the balance of being speaking the truth but not being too hard.
Right, and it's a fine line because like you have to be honest and you have to watch the game and be critical about it. You don't want to be you don't want to be a jerk about it. So it's almost like if you have something critical to say, you want to make sure you back it up and just don't say, oh, this guy sucks and this guy can't do this and that. Like, if you think this guy sucks, tell him why and say why. And then it's almost not as bad. At least you can probably respect it from a player's point of view. But it's definitely tough. There's no question because then you get to, the fans of the team and it's like, oh, this guy's just a Patriots bobo. He doesn't want to be critical of the team. And I ran into that a lot last season with a guy like Mac Jones, who you played with, who I didn't think it was Mac's fault. I thought
definitely wasn't 100% his fault.
Yeah, right. And it's like, oh, you're just carrying this guy's water, but no, there was so many things around it. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. What I'm curious about, James, is what's next for you and what's next for you in this space. Like, are you happy with what you're doing? Do you want to get to another place? Like, I look at there's so many former athletes in the business now. You're Shannon Sharps of the world who really go all the way to the top. Like, is that something that's in your in your goals? Are you just trying to, I don't want to say lay low, but kind of just stay what you're doing, or what's next?
For me, it's just finding something that's, steady and consistent. Just having more work. I think that's the biggest thing for me. It doesn't have to be at the top. It doesn't have to be, ESPN. It could be, local networks, just finding, kind of building a team, kind of like playing, the game of football, working with people, whether there's 5 days a week, 4 days a week, I don't know, and building the trust and relationship with them, talking sports. I think that's something that I really want to get accomplished. I don't know how soon, that will happen or when it will happen, but I'm going to keep, obviously putting, my voice out there, whether it's my own podcast or appearing on your podcast or appearing on different networks in the New England area when they have me on, just to show, what I'm capable of doing. And then hopefully, something comes from that soon.
That's awesome. It's good stuff. I think it's cool. I think it's, seeing you obviously coming on here, and you came on with me and Taylor, a couple weeks ago, and you've been on with Callahan a couple times on pass interference and stuff like that. It's cool to see a forward player, someone I've watched, someone I've covered, kind of do this and, build relationships with us. And I think that's exactly, frankly, what you have to do to keep yourself in the space. So personally, I'm looking forward to seeing where this journey continues. So before we get you out of here, I do have my fast 5 to finish. 5 rapid fire questions for James White, the Behind the Mic special, before we get you out of here. So number 1, James, what is your favorite thing to do outside of sports, outside of working, playing in sports, anything? Outside of sports, what's your favorite thing?
Tough. I have 2 things, probably video games and then bowling. Those are my 1 and 2 right there. I haven't been bowling as much as of lately. My bowling balls are in storage.
Over the mail bowl?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like before I had kids, I used to go bowling like 2 or 3 times a week, be out like late bowling, bowling with my friends and cousins. But after having kids, that kind of slowed down, so I had to get back on the lanes again.
That's funny. You playing NCAA 25?
I definitely am, yeah.
Are you playing as James White? Are you playing at Wisconsin? What's the deal there?
The first game that I play, I always use Wisconsin, and after that, it's kind of free for all. I bounce around and use different teams, whether it's the Clemsons or Alabamas, or playing with smaller schools or things of that nature that maybe some teams wouldn't play with, some people wouldn't play with.
That's funny. All right, question number 2. What is the most memorable moment you've had in sports in your sports life? It doesn't have to be sports media; it can be anything.
Ooh, most memorable moment. It's hard. I've been fortunate to have a lot of great moments in the game of football. Ooh. I mean, Super Bowl 51, obviously that one's pretty clear. And I think in college, my freshman year, beating number 1 Ohio State at home my freshman year and scoring like the game sealing touchdown. That was a lot of fun. It was great atmosphere. It was a one-of-a-kind game right there.
I'm going off on tangents now because I'm thinking of more questions as I ask you this. But did you think after Super Bowl 51 that and again, you're not going to take it away from Tom, but did you think you were going to get MVP? Did you think there was a chance, or were you not even thinking of it at that point?
I mean, I wasn't necessarily thinking it, but after the game, like the media people were like grabbing me and stuff. So I was like, oh, like they must be going to bring me on stage like for something. And I go up there, like the Tom's up there and like Bill's up there. I'm like why am I why am I up here? Like I don't think they asked me a question or two. I don't really remember.
Well, you had to be up there. You scored the game-winning touchdown.
I was like, I don't have to be up here if you're not giving me an award. I could have stayed down there with my teammates. But it was just confusing because they were like in a rush to grab me. I was like, oh, there must be something there. Giving me. I was like, oh, maybe not.
During the game, like, do you realize in the like, again, there was so much going on in your guys' head, trying to come back from that. And it's like, you got to take it one play at a time and all that stuff. Do you realize in the moment, like, how good of a game you're having, like that you had 14 catches and X amount of yards and stuff? Or do you just not even think of that because you were down so much?
I was in a zone. I think most players probably, like, when you're having those type of games, you not necessarily remember like the stats or anything, but you're kind of locked in. Everything's blocked out. It just feels like you versus your opponent. Not hearing the fans. I'm not hearing anything. I'm just zoned in. I'm pretty tired too. That game I was exhausted. That's probably the most snaps I played, all year long. But it was a ton of fun. I mean, not in the first half, but I was just laser focused. I wasn't necessarily worried about the stats, but I didn't know the ball kept coming my way, and I was just trying to try and make stuff happen every time I got.
I was in college, and one of my buddies had a bet on you to win Super Bowl MVP before the game, and he lost it, and he lost his mind.
One of my good friends from middle school, high school, he had the same thing. He always sends me like the screenshot of it, like whenever like talk about it like on social media.
That's
like,
so funny.
Man, they really screw me out.
Yeah. That's good stuff. That's funny. All right, back on track. Back to our rapid fire questions. Not so rapid fire, but I had to get in my Super Bowl 51 questions. What's the best advice you've received in your transition to the media game? Like, learning from people and trying to get into this next step.
Just take coaching. I think that's a big thing. I worked with a lady named Jill Montgomery during the fall when I was doing Big Ten Network. It's kind of like with Bill Belichick, just critical, a little harsh sometimes, but you got to hear it, and it helps you improve on a lot of things. I know for me, in the beginning, I was using like a lot of filler words, the likes and us, yeah, things of that nature. She would kind of get after me a little bit about that. Then, after a few weeks of doing it, I really cut it out when I was on TV. So it really made a difference in just having a plan for, when you're up there being concise, because it's a time crunch. You only got 30 seconds, 40 seconds to really spit out what you want to say. And hopefully the person before you doesn't say what you want to say too. So
that's the worst.
So oh, well, he said what I was going to say.
Yeah. You got anything else to add? No, not really. Back to you. That's funny. All right. Question number 4. If you didn't play football, if you didn't get into the media game, what would your profession be? What would you be doing right now?
Ooh. I did play baseball, so maybe hopefully I'll be a baseball player. Maybe I don't know. Other than that, it's tough. I mean, I wanted to study business at Wisconsin. I did for my first year there. Then trying to do that, alongside football. Shout out to anybody who could do that and focus on the school and books that well to be very good at both. I think if I didn't play football, I would have really locked in on that and really studied business, and hopefully that would have resulted in me opening up, which I obviously still can do that, but my own business.
Right. What position did you play in baseball?
Center field.
All right. Did you play at Wisconsin or no?
No, they have a baseball team.
Oh, all right.
My dad wanted me to try and play both, but I kind of picked Wisconsin, so I didn't have to.
Gotcha. Yeah, there you go. All right. Finally, question number 5 before we get you out of here, James. What's your favorite pizza topping?
Ooh, just one, or what I put on pizza when
What do you put on pizza? What's the go-to?
Just sausage pepperoni, probably.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not too exotic when it comes to the pineapple and all the peppers and that. Yeah, fairly simple.
There you go. It's easy enough. It's a good one. Well, James, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. This was fun. If you haven't, go check out James's podcast, The Money Down, and check him out on the Big Ten Network and wherever else he is. He's obviously still connected to the Patriots, hopping on all our podcasts around here. So make sure you check him out, James. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Mike. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. Let's do it again sometime. If you haven't, anybody, please check out the Behind the Mic podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Behind Mic Pod, and subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back soon for episode 16. Until then, see you next time, and thanks for watching.